June 10th, 2023, Istanbul. 71,000 people inside the Ataturk Olympic Stadium. Millions more watching around the world. And somehow, for Manchester City fans, it felt like the longest night of their lives. Because this wasn't supposed to be stressful. This wasn't supposed to be difficult. This wasn't supposed to be a close game. Manchester City had just destroyed Europe. Bayern Munich, gone. Real Madrid, humiliated. Manchester United, beaten at Wembley. Erling Haaland had broken the Premier League goal-scoring record. Kevin De Bruyne was playing the best football of his career. Pep Guardiola had built the most complete team in world football. Everything pointed towards one ending, one trophy, one final step, one perfect ending. But football doesn't care about perfect endings. Football only cares about suffering, and nobody understood that better than Pep Guardiola. Because for 12 years, the Champions League had become his obsession. Not his dream, his obsession. Every season started the same way. Win the league, compete for cups. And then, everything would be judged by Europe. Not the trophies he won, the one trophy he didn't. And every year, football found a new way to break his heart. Chelsea, Tottenham, Lyon, Real Madrid. Different opponents, same pain. The closer he got, the further it seemed to move away. But this time felt different, because this wasn't just another Manchester City team. This was the monster Pep Guardiola had spent 7 years building. And if they won in Istanbul, they wouldn't just win the Champions League, they would complete the treble. Only the second English club ever to do it. And that's where our story begins. The funny thing about greatness is that people only remember the moment you succeed. Nobody remembers how many times you failed. But the treble wasn't built in 2023. It was built through heartbreak. Let's go back. Porto. Manchester City reached their first Champions League final in club history. Everything is set. Chelsea stand on the other side. And then Pep does something strange. No Rodri, no Fernandinho, no defensive midfielder. A tactical gamble. A tactical gamble that failed. Chelsea win. Kai Havertz scores. City lose. And suddenly the questions return. Can Pep still win the Champions League? Has football moved on? Is he overthinking these big games? 1 year later, it gets worse. Much worse. Real Madrid, Bernabeu, 90 minutes played. Manchester City are heading to the final. The scoreboard says City. The clock says City. The tie says City. Then Rodrigo happens. 2 goals, 2 minutes, complete chaos. Football's cruelest lesson. 1 second you're celebrating, the next you're eliminated. Real Madrid go through. Pep stands on the touchline, motionless, like a man trying to understand how reality just changed in front of him. And that's what made 2023 different. This wasn't a team chasing glory. This was a team chasing closure. Then came Erling Haaland. And honestly, it felt unfair. Manchester City already controlled matches. Now they had the best goal scorer on the planet. 52 goals in all competitions. A Premier League record. Defenders looked terrified. Managers looked defeated. The machine had found its finisher. But here's what most people miss about that season. The treble wasn't won because of Haaland. It was won because Pep changed the team again. John Stones stopped being a center back. Sometimes he was a midfielder, sometimes both. Rodri became the heartbeat. Akanji arrived. Ake evolved. Bernardo Silva became whatever Pep needed him to be. Every piece started fitting together, like a puzzle finally revealing its picture. And by April, Manchester City looked unstoppable. Arsenal had spent months leading the league. At one point, they were 8 points clear. People were already preparing the celebrations. Then City caught them. Then City hunted them down. Then City destroyed them. 4-1 at the Etihad, a football lesson disguised as a title race. From that moment, the Premier League belonged to Manchester City again. But the league wasn't the story. The Champions League was. It always was. If Istanbul was the final chapter, Madrid was the moment everybody knew how the story would end. Real Madrid, kings of Europe, the club that broke City's heart 1 year earlier. The defending champions, the team nobody wanted to play. First leg, 1-1, everything still alive. Then came the Etihad, and honestly, I've never seen Real Madrid look smaller. From the first whistle, they couldn't breathe, couldn't pass, couldn't escape, couldn't survive. Manchester City didn't beat Real Madrid. They suffocated them. Bernardo Silva scored, then scored again. The Etihad turned into a party. Madrid turned into spectators. 5-1 on aggregate. One of the greatest performances of the Guardiola era. And when the final whistle blew, something changed. For years, City were the challengers. Now, they were the team everyone feared. 1 game left, 1 trophy left, 1 step from immortality. The problem with finals is that they don't care about narratives. Inter Milan didn't read the script. Everybody expected Manchester City to dominate. Instead, Inter made them suffer. Every pass felt heavy. Every attack felt dangerous. Then, disaster. Kevin De Bruyne pulls up injured. Again. The same man who left the 2021 final injured walks off another Champions League final injured. You could almost feel City fans thinking, not again. The ghosts were back. The fear was back. The doubt was back. And Inter kept coming. Lautaro Martinez had had chances. DiMarco hit the bar. Lukaku had an open header. For long periods, the better chances belonged to Inter. Then came the moment. 68th minute. Bernardo Silva drives into the box, pulls it back. The ball rolls perfectly. Rodri arrives. One touch, one finish, bottom corner. Silence. Then madness. Rodri, of all people, the man who held everything together, the man who never stopped running, the man who never stopped believing. The goal that changed Manchester City's history forever. But even then, football wasn't finished. Finally, after 15 years of investment, after 7 years of Guardiola, after all the heartbreak, Manchester City were champions of Europe and treble winners. People talk about Rodri's goal. People talk about Haaland's goals. People talk about Guardiola, and they should, because without them, none of this happens. But the treble means something bigger than goals, tactics, or trophies. Because before June 10th, 2023, Manchester City were successful. They were rich. They were dominant. They were feared. But there was always an asterisk. Always one question. Always one thing left to prove. Can they do it in Europe? For years, that question followed them everywhere. Through title celebrations, through record-breaking seasons, through 100-point campaigns, through 4 Premier League titles in 5 years, through every trophy parade. No matter what they achieved, the Champions League was always waiting. The final boss, the missing piece, the one trophy that separated Manchester City from football's immortals. And that's what made Istanbul different, because this wasn't just another final. This was the end of a journey that had started long before Pep Guardiola arrived, long before Kevin De Bruyne, long before Sergio Aguero's goal against QPR, long before the Abu Dhabi takeover. This was a journey that started with a club bouncing between divisions, a club that spent decades looking up at the giants of English football, a club that watched others make history while they fought just to survive. And now, they stood 90 minutes away from joining football's elite forever. The Premier League title confirmed dominance, the FA Cup confirmed superiority, but the Champions League confirmed immortality. Because trophies fade, records get broken, managers leave, players retire, great teams eventually disappear. But the treble lives forever. Only a handful of clubs in football history have ever conquered everything in a single season. Manchester City became one of them. And maybe that's why that image still hits so hard. Pep Guardiola standing on the touchline, just staring, like a man who had finally reached the top of a mountain he'd been climbing for 12 years. Because nobody remembers how painful the journey was. Chelsea in Porto, Tottenham in Manchester, Lyon in Lisbon, Madrid in the Bernabeu. Every collapse, every mistake, every accusation, every headline calling him an overthinker, every year being told that he could win leagues but not Europe, every year being reminded that he hadn't won the Champions League since Barcelona. For 12 years, football kept finding new ways to break his heart. And then, football finally ran out of ways to stop him. When the final whistle blew in Istanbul, Manchester City became champions of Europe. But something even bigger happened. A football club founded in 1880, a club that spent most of its existence in the shadow of Manchester United, a club that had played in the third tier of English football, a club that people once laughed at, became immortal. Because from that moment on, nobody could question them anymore. Not their place in football history. The debate was over. Now, if you want to know how Manchester City went from a second division club fighting for survival to champions, check this video right here.